Hello, welcome again everybody to another episode of Wheel of Albums. Along with my brother Adam and our friend Jack, I am Justin. And what we do here on Wheel of Albums is we spin a wheel of the 1001 albums you must hear before you die. Then after that, we take a week, we listen to that album, and we tell you if we think it's an album that you must listen to before you die. From Robert Dimery's 1001 Albums Before You Die book. This week, I spun the wheel. And I spun That's the Way of the World.
From Earth, Wind, and Fire. I'm going to know at least one song because I know the song That's the Way of the World. Familiar with a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire songs. I didn't have a clue they have as many albums as they do, giving it a good old-fashioned spin.
Yeah, Jack, just like you said, I didn't realize how many albums Earth, Wind, and Fire had. Just like Judas Priest. This is their 6th album with That's the Way of the World. Yeah, I didn't know this was a soundtrack either, so I looked forward to listening to it because I knew some Earth, Wind, and Fire. The All in All album and Spirit albums I really enjoy. I've listened to before. And the handful of their singles, too, are really enjoyable. So, yeah, I was looking forward to listening to this.
This week, the album gave us That's the Way of the World by Earth, Wind, and Fire. And my initial reaction for this one was, hey, I just listened to this album like 2 weeks ago, and I really dug it. So let's get down with some more funk.
I'd always thought of Earth, Wind, and Fire as more of a late 70s disco band, which they were. But right here on That's the Way of the World, you hear a lot of like soul influence, like it reminds me a lot of like the early 70s, like the OJ's Backstabbers album. I really liked it because it shows like how they kind of transformed from soul to disco. So this album's got a little bit of all that. It's a little funky, maybe not as much as Parliament and Funkadelic, but it's just the perfect mix of everything and the perfect soundtrack for what you would think is 70s music. What do you hear, Jack?
It definitely has some disco leanings. So I will go with, if I had to pick between funk, disco, or R&B, I'm going to go with R&D, rhythm and disco. Is that allowed?
That's the Way of the World offers up a 4-course meal of ear candy when you listen to this. And it starts off a little appetizer, a little disco in there, and then it gets, the main course, which is, I think, a good mixture of soul and funk. And then for dessert, you get a little bit of R&B flavor to it as well. And it's just a good range of different styles, and it's all mixed really well together.
Finding out this was a 70s soundtrack, and my head starts running all the other 70s soundtracks. Shaft, Superfly, Saturday Night Fever. So what you guys think as far as where That's the Way of the World would fit in among those monumental 70s soundtracks?
I gotta say, it doesn't rank as high as like maybe Jaws or Rocky, Saturday Night Fever. Those are, really classic albums. Goldilocks by Bing Crosby. Let's scratch that one. But what I would like to see is maybe a battle royale between Foxy Brown, Shaft, Superfly, taking on That's the Way of the World. Which one is the best soul funk movie soundtrack of the 70s? And I think I'm going to do that. So if you guys just hold on for a little bit, I'm going to put a poll up on the interweb. Which one wins?
Oh, Adam's going to run a poll for a deep tease in our podcast. Okay, we'll get back to that and see who wins Adam's poll. Jack, what do you got?
Found out this was a soundtrack to a movie. The movie stars Harvey Keitel. This being a soundtrack makes you judge it a little bit differently because not everything's going to be a single or meant to be a single. Some of it is the mood of a scene or something of that nature. And I think they did a fantastic job because there is a lot of variety, but it's still that Earth, Wind, and Fire sound.
As far as soulful, funky music, Earth, Wind, and Fire hits that spot quite nicely here. The vibe's right on.
The 70s movie soundtracks were pretty incredible. I can't say this is the best. You got Jaws, you're fighting with Star Wars, you're fighting with The Godfather, Saturday Night Fever, Grease, Shaft, Superfly. The movie isn't in the top 20 movies of the 1970s, and unfortunately, neither is the soundtrack to That's the Way of the World.
So I opted not to watch That's the Way of the World, just to keep it a little bit of, as they say, an all about love on the album, a little bit of mysticism.
Now, I want you to stop whatever you're doing just stop. You know, for instance, we study all kinds of isms: metabolism, astigmatism, survivalism, biomagnetism, ventriloquism, botulism, right on. That breakdown in All About Love is fantastic. And I may just start saying things like this. Any words that add with ism, please submit.
I'm controlling and thinking about my inner self and how it hears the album versus comparing it and corrupting my viewpoint of it with the way other people are viewing it and seeing what I feel and hear in my brain.
The movie itself, like Jack said, not top 20 material. But there is a scene, if you're listening, I'm going to put a link and try to put a link in. And it's 5 minutes of Harvey Keitel producing the evil family trio of The Pages and their song, Joy, Joy, Joy. It's a very catchy song. Wish it was on the soundtrack, but it's not. That is the 5 minutes I think is most worth seeing in this film.
I did watch the movie only because it starred Harvey Keitel and Earth, Wind & Fire. And I thought, well, this must be a comedy buddy road picture where Harvey Keitel ends up driving Earth, Wind & Fire across the country so they could save the old farm. But that's not the case.
I saw the Embarrass in the film, then heard it on the album.
The instrument sound is extremely unique.
Adam and Jack, what's your over and under on how many people you think should be in a band?
10 members in a band seems like it's too much. You might forget somebody's name. You certainly are going to forget them at a rest stop.
I certainly wouldn't mind hiding out a little bit and getting some of the accolades. So sure, I'd play second rhythm tambourine in Earth, Wind & Fire. I'd rather be able to duck and cover, but that's just me. 5
always seemed good, although it feels like there might be that one odd man out. It'd be good to have a tiebreaker in making decisions. So I'm going to say 5.
All right, when we take all the songs, rate them from 1 to 10. I had a score of 7 for That's the Way of the World. Adam with a 6.375, Jack a 5.5. Our final rating was 6.375 as far as the average went. For our favorite songs, That's the Way of the World and Shining Star both scored 27s for 1 and 2. Happy Feeling was our third favorite with the score 20. We all agreed that the worst song we thought on here was See the Light.
Must you listen to the soundtrack, That's the Way of the World, before you die? Because of my gut feeling that other Earth, Wind & Fires are on here, I'm going to say no. Shining Star is the album opener. It's a timeless piece. It's classic Earth, Wind & Fire. They follow it pretty nicely with the title track, That's the Way of the World. This has strong Earth, Wind & Fire songs, but because it's a soundtrack, not everything is a standalone song. Based upon that, I am going to go with no. You do not have to listen to That's the Way of the World.
If you need to hear something before you die by Earth, Wind & Fire, it's probably their greatest hits package from the 1990s. It's got everything on it. Boogie Wonderlands, Let's Groove, Shining Star, and a bunch of songs from this album are on there too. The Wheel of Albums doesn't do greatest hits or essential packages. Saying that, this soundtrack is still something I think you should hear before you die. Joyous, I love everything on it. Love Africano, the instrumental that's on the second side as well. Yeah, this is good stuff. I would recommend you listening to this before you die. Cherry on top is Yearning and Learning. And even better yet is when it was part of the roller skating scene in the movie. Adam, go ahead and break that down.
Even though the numbers might not look the greatest for That's the Way of the World, I think it is an album that you need to listen to before you die. If for anything, just to give you a sense of what 70s funk was all about, what a 70s funk soundtrack was all about. The beginning track, Shining Star, is just a 10 out of 10 in my book. That's the Way of the World is great. When I first found out we were going to listen to this, I thought a Yearnin' Learnin' is another good one. And Africano is a great mixture of just, they do a really good job instrumentally of like holding it together and bringing it to
He
you.
brought joy, joy, joy.
All right, so we got 2 yays and 1 nay for the soundtrack. That's the Way of the World by Earth, Wind & Fire. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe. And if you are listening on Spotify, we'd love if you gave us a rating. And maybe commented and voted on our poll, too. Adam, it's your turn. Let's spin that wheel for album number... Where are we to now? Album number 16.
The wheel has been spun. And next up on the Wheel of Albums is... It's time to get your speed metal, your thrash metal, your death metal, and your black metal on with the album Black Metal Venom. Calculating, and the results are in on the what was the best funk soundtrack, soul soundtrack of the 70s. That's the Way of the World just didn't cut it compared to Shaft and Superfly, who duked it out for first place, and Shaft was the winner. Not quite as high as Shaft and Superfly, but it did better than Foxy Brown. And that's it for this week's Wheel of Albums. For Jack and Justin, I'm Adam. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week when we discuss Black Metal by Venom.